Hello. It's good to see you. It's good to have you back. We're recording ourselves here. We're recording ourselves, and by that I mean me, ourselves. Huh? What if it's like the audience is part of the recording? Is that what it's like at all? I need to take some time to look at the camera because that's the way that people do it. I recognize and I get worried about that I'm repeating the same example again because I don't go through and edit the episodes anymore, so I don't know what I said. So I might end up saying something with like the same delivery as I said it previously because I think that I didn't say it. But it's just that if you're recording yourself, it should be awkward rather than I notice in if I do look back and see what I did while being recorded that I'm often not looking at the camera like you're supposed to, or I'm looking too many ways. But I also realize that this being recorded should not be you shouldn't meet all the standards because that makes you weird, that makes you creepy, because this is embarrassing naturally. And so it should be, you should be looking everywhere rather than at a camera. Because there's nothing natural about looking at a camera. But for this format, you got to look at the camera. For if you're being filmed in a movie, you're supposed to not look at the camera. There's a standard for different worlds, for different realities. For a different reality, the rules of the game are different. They are. And what is your reality? What is yours? What is the game to you? I guess I'm of the position that, as far as I can tell, we don't really understand games because we don't describe the things we're doing as games. Work is a game and not a game. It's not a game because it's not fun, but it's a game because it's a competition. But you try to get ahead through your work, and then you tell other people about your work. But it's the game is understood to be about work so much so that in a lot of your conversations, this is what comes up. You talk about your work. This is one of the standards of just the entire game of life, is the place that work has in it, but especially the current standing of it, the way that we look at work now and our relationship to work as it is now is it works. But of course it works. That works. It works to talk about work because, and that's an excuse you can use. It passes. It works. It works even for conversation, that you can use this as an excuse, working, because if it does work, then you get by. It works if you get money doing the job that you do. It works if you get money. So working, it's just that we don't understand what games are to this point. We're starting to understand that, but because games is a more transcendent idea, we haven't arrived at the point of seeing shit. We start to get there by seeing that narration is up to us, or that it's not the people who say they get to narrate it are the people who get to. It's not narration, but that we get to decide the rules of the game, or say how life is, just that people do, rather than these groups that say that they're the rule makers. We don't understand that completely yet, but that we dissolve these areas, so we dissolve filmmaking. It's just that there are transcendent things, and arriving at the point where we saw everything as a game. This is just something that we are evolving towards, but that we project a lot of importance into actors for making a film, or just TV, or that we are under the spell of TV at the point that this invention is introduced into our living rooms, meets that it's actually right in our lives. This is technology that's important enough that we just have to do it immediately. It's the same with the cell phone, that we're well, this is, everybody gets one because it's so far above us that we just have to do it, or pick it apart. We've never had the ability to get information from everywhere, like as a species. And so it's just that sometimes the technology is so transcendent that you're transfixed by it. And like very large segments of society, like almost everybody, it's the same with like lots of people get a TV, like a high percentage of people will get one. Like, and I'm just saying, starting in the 50s when these things started to appear in everybody's homes, it's interesting that it's so important that people act, that they like set up TV and TV shows, like these realities and these worlds and sitcoms, like fictional worlds, transmuted to you through a TV show, like I Love Lucy or something. Like this is a different world, but this is so important to us that we can't deny, and we still do to this day. Like Netflix just pumps out all these different shows, these different realities. It's kind of us working through our own ability to fictionalize things, but part of it is if somebody makes a cartoon and any cartoon, somebody writes this cartoon, you get to in some ways see them as a hero, the person that wrote it, or just the cartoon in front of you, the world that was created, rather than create your own, that you get to consume a new reality that somebody made, rather than that you have to create your own. This is I'm trying to ride this high, I'm trying to explain from the standpoint of how I'm already explaining, rather than get off it or say that because I can go into the world where I have things to say. I can get out of the world where I have things to say. But I have to do work to do that. Like I have to be enthusiastic. Like this is built on enthusiasm. That like if I make a good episode, if it's good at all, it's built on enthusiasm. Like this is it's like a character I would play, or it's like a persona, but it really isn't one. It's just that the more enthusiastic self that you are is often, I think, the person that people are trying to be, where they're like, I need to be my true self, like, but I'm not there. Or, like, I wish my true self would come out around this person. Or like, I acted like my true self this one time, and it's like, that's my true self. That's who I really am, is when I'm drunk or when I'm under the influence. That's my true self. Like, it might just be your enthusiastic self or your outgoing self. Like, your true self is also the person that fucks up around the people that you want to impress. Like, and that happens to everybody. It's not like it's not like there are people that are always impressive, because they're like, you win and you lose with different people around you. Like, you would only be a popular person or like very highly intellectual or sociable if you were constantly learning from people that were better than you. Like, there were people that you were unable to impress, that you were trying to figure out it, like get better at it. You would only be practicing it all the time, meaning like you're winning and losing at the game of sociability if you were actually sociable. That like, so they're like, I'm saying that everybody has been to the point where they like can't communicate their true self, or like the nerves get to them or whatever. And but so I'm just like, this is built on enthusiasm, like, because I'm not always enthusiastic, but most of the time. So that's something that's false about it, is that like, I'm not, if I'm just in my apartment, I'm not talking all this way, you know? This is like, that's why it's like a character. Even though this is something that I would be doing, I could try to convince you like it's not a character. It's just that a persona, like, you don't know who Joe Rogan is. You get to see hours and hours of his TV persona. But like a fictionalized universe, just that we're trying to process our ability to create fictional realities. And that's why like TV shows and film become so popular. I'm just saying, in the course of human history, like at the point that these things become introduced, like in the 30s or 40s or whatever, or also cartoons. But part of it is that you see that somebody made it, and like, you're just like, you see in yourself the ability to be talented to do something like that. But now you don't have to do it because somebody else took the hit, they made the world, and now you get to enjoy that. Or like, it makes it so that you don't have to create an entire world for other people to enjoy, or like really go further into your imagination. You can just sit on your couch and enjoy something that somebody else did. It's the same with like singing or dancing. The people that are good at it, you just, Like, there are people that try to do it, and they have to, that's harder to do. They have to create a world. Like, they have to create a world where they're good at that, and that takes, like, because there are lots of people that are good at it, but they're just not going to get off of their ass and do it, like singing. Like, not everybody is good at singing, but I mean, part of singing is that you work at it, or like you morph your voice to be what is like a popular voice, because some of that is propagandized to the world, marketed to you, especially when music is more formulaic, or like it's given more to people that are trying to build a platform for what is like a pop star. They're just trying to sell you on the idea of the pop star, and then, but if they marketed it correctly, then that is what becomes the voice that you're supposed to sound like in order to be the best at it. But if everybody is like, in a world where we don't value a singing voice quite as much, like the voice doesn't have any influence, like these game shows about singing have zero influence compared to what they did 15 years ago. But like 15 years ago, we're like so overwhelmed by the game of singing, like the competition of it, that everybody would like. But it's just that singing did what like fiction, like sitcoms would have done. But also, you get to see the characters in a sitcom and see them play out their life. You get like, it's very comfortable for you to see these canned responses, canned lifestyles, where you know everything about the person's life. Is like, you get to control the reality when you just see somebody else do it. It's not just like that you project into like the creator. I mean, you can do that. Like, you can be more creative and you wish that you created it, rather than that you wish that you were like a character, or like maybe a character presents an ideal life to you. But it's just this relationship to simulations and games that comes about at the point that's like in human history, that we're like so interested in, that you can create any scenario through TV, or like even like adult fiction, like sci-fi teen fiction book series, is like the Hunger Games and all that. Like all those, like it got to the point where Barnes and Noble is just full of millions of these different scenarios of like post-apocalyptic universes where you get sorted into groups, like the Hunger Games or the Maze Runner or whatever. And like just the ability to make all these scenarios, and then that all of a sudden, we like, the artistic genre involves processing our ability to create any fictional scenario. This shows that we're on the precipice of recognizing that everything is a game, but like, we're not at the point, like, people say that sometimes, like, oh, it's just a game, but we don't live that out ever. We haven't gotten to the point where we actually get to see that everything is a game. But like, so we're not like, oh, everything is a game, because if we really thought everything was a game, everything that we see that is a game, we wouldn't be subject to it. But we're still ruled by the games. We're still ruled by the people that are, I mean, you're always going to be ruled by some authority, some predominant authority. It's just that we're on the precipice of dissolving games itself. Like, but that's gonna be, like, what I'm saying is that people get what they want. I think. Like, I think that the world does what it wants. You see that that we consume entertainment the way that we do. We watch the movies. We watch all the Netflix shows. We do these things. We watch all these fictionalized scenarios, and the point that I'm making is that they aren't, it's not like evil to do that. We're just doing what we want. Like, society evolves to do what it wanted to do, I think, to the point that, like, we wish that it was fun. We wish that you weren't working all the time. You had to like do all this mundane shit, and we're trying to get to the point where we just get to do what we want to do, or like, because there would have been a point in human history where we're like, I wish we didn't have to hunt down this wildebeest and kill it. Like, that's a lot of work. And so it's like, having to work gets dissolved in all these areas, to the point that your phone just now gives you all this information. All you have to do is sit on your ass and flip through your phone, and this is like entertaining for you. It's like entertainment is so in everybody's face, or like so ubiquitous that anybody can access it. It's so accessible that there's no work that has to be done to entertain yourself, or like nobody has to be bored anymore. Like maybe in colonial times, were they bored? I don't really know. I would have thought that they didn't even understand what entertainment could be, so they weren't even bored. Like, but maybe they were bored. It's just that you didn't fill an hour. That I'd imagine that they didn't fill an hour doing anything besides like working. But I mean, it comes to the point that then like there's fast food restaurants, and then now you don't have to kill a wildebeest, and so you can. Food is just right at your door now, especially now with food delivery services come to your door. Food just more arrives at your door, so now like we really did what we would have wanted to. Like I wish there was and that's why we created that universe, is because we created the universe where food just arrives at your door, because we eventually were able to define that. I wish we lived in a world where we didn't have to fight for it. Wouldn't that be great? Because and it takes so long to do that because we would have superstition about creating a world where everything is easy or convenient for you. Like, for example, it should not be fun to sit alone in your house or anything, and these things are maligned and hated by the world that used to do things more, because they're going to say that it's evil to like enjoy things. Like, you can't make a memory just being alone in your house watching Netflix, or like this isn't living life. And so these things are maligned, or where they're painted in a negative light, or they're going to like, people will say all the time that you can't live life this way, like because you will not be happy. But like part of that is just the stigma of you can't be inside ever. Like why would the world not evolve to say like, well, we can all be inside and enjoy it, because we do actually enjoy it. Like we do actually enjoy not being around each other or something. The world could evolve. I think that the world does what it wants, but you see that that's true because they continually create inventions that meet the function that we wanted. And I think that will happen with games. I think that we'll get to the point where we're not doing work, especially when money can be with everybody, but like you have to, like, technologies have to arise that would be able to render work more meaningless. But I think that that's what we're arriving at. But it's a certain level of intelligence where you're able to define that work isn't necessary, or just the intelligence, or like adding incorporating into your vocabulary that is also a game, and like seeing that everything is a game. At the point that you do that, then there's no going back. Or like being intelligent enough to define everything as one thing, there's no going back. Like if it's actually true, like if you go outside of a reality that you used to completely believe in, and then if you really see the falseness of that reality, then like there's no going back. Like there's this place I dropped my dog off called Dogtopia, and it is it's a store. They offer a service, which is that they watch my dog if I go away, or just for a few hours, or it's like my dog gets to play with other dogs while he's there. So they create this environment called Dogtopia where all the dogs get to go and like play for the day, when you as the owner can drop them off. But that's the service that they provided. They called it Dogtopia as emblematic of the service that they offer but like part of that's the importance of branding, is that you title yourself to what you actually do, rather than, because you would be a bad entrepreneur, business starter, if like the title of your place didn't have anything to do with the function that you're providing. Like you have to say what you are, because you are creating this reality, and it's a serious thing. Like it's not ironic, like it's a serious thing. So you actually have to title it seriously to what you do, because it's completely serious that you create your own game. Like if you are the creator of it. What isn't serious is it's not serious. Dogtopia isn't serious to me because I'm not so involved with it that it's like my business. And it's not my business. I can go in and out of it, but it's like I can see outside of that reality, to the point that I'm not living within the bounds of, like, I don't filter everything through what Dogtopia would want me to do. But you do that with any restaurant or business. It's like you see outside of it, so it's like that's not the world, you know. And there's also no going back for me unless I lived my life every day within Dogtopia, or like started working there. then it does become my life. But that's like I get engaged in the theater of it. The more that you just do it, the more that it becomes repetitive. Because Dogtopia is like a theater for the theater of that. For like that's for that being the show, it is a theater called Dogtopia, where where it plays out the same way every day, the same way a Broadway show does. Like it's a show, the workers go and then they provide this service, but they like not that they have a specific set of lines, but like so it's like a broader interpretation of a theater, but they they say this similar things and they're kind of expected to say the same things to customers. Like they're supposed to showcase a certain attitude of friendliness that is compatible with the attitude of like a dog business, like the same way that dogs are friendly, the same way you see people treat dogs, they have to embody that to the fullest in order to be successful or whatever. I mean, like it has to do with their identity and how much they are making good on their identity, because if they aren't truly behind the identity, it's not going to be successful, because then if they're not truly behind what you're trying to do, you start a business. And that's why businesses go under, and you can see businesses going under, or like that the management sucks, like if it's a new business or like a struggling restaurant or something, because there isn't confidence in it. Like when there isn't confidence behind a business, or like even when there isn't confidence for somebody behind what they're wearing or something, like I guess possibly then you don't pull it off or whatever. But like you still have to maybe make failing businesses before you make a good one or something. So it's like you have to go through failure in the realities that you're promoting yourself as, to understand what you really are. Like understanding who you are involves a lot of work, a lot of experiences. It's not just like you can imagine your way there. Like yeah, it's not like you can imagine your way there. And in the same respect as that, you can't imagine whoever is the best person that you could be, like or like who you really are, who you truly are. You don't know, because there's endless ways and realities that you would be able to live in or filter yourself through that you haven't lived. That like you act different in a Dogtopia, or like you act different in different restaurants. You have to act different in a Chuck E. Cheese than like, and you act like because the environment that's provided to you has certain rules, and then you living by those rules tells you how you would act in that environment as according to that game. But like because there's different game, like you under the set of different rules is the same with a chemical compound or a drug. Different chemical compounds, like as far as you being under the influence of them, will show you different sides of yourself. Or it's like, but it's like different rules of a game, because it's in that case it's like literally written into the DNA of whatever chemical compound and like drug you did, is that like then that you becoming that, or like different set of carbon atoms is a different reality, slightly different game. But it's like the rules of the game are like written into the program of this many carbon attached to this many hydrogen, like this compound. There's different rules of a game. It's like a computer program almost, because it's like microscopic in that way. It's almost like, I mean, it's imperceptible. That like chemical compound is imperceptible. You can't see it unless you put it under a microscope, like the way that a chemical is compounded. And it's a different program. But what I'm saying is that it's like the enthusiasm, like, and it's hard to say what's right in front of you. I'm trying to say what's next to say, and that's part of the game that I would be playing. I don't remember what I said exactly, but like that I would need to not say what I said before. These are the rules of the game for podcasting. And podcasting is like a game, but and depending on how good you are at it. But I was saying that you like you record yourself, and the rules of the game would stay. Like if you're a YouTuber, you look at the camera, but then you can change the rules if you want to create a better reality. But that takes work, or that's a risk to package yourself as something that people haven't seen before. Then you might be wrong, or you might move the needle of whatever. It depends on what you're trying to do, or it depends on if you see yourself as innovative. you try to do that, and that's only reciprocated. Like, it's only proven that you are innovative if the new thing that you're doing is like, that if people like it. But you're not innovative if you don't make something new, or if you make something new that people don't like, then you're like, I mean, whatever, you're risking it. But it's like, yeah, I get nervous when I go into Dogtopia. I get nervous around dog people because of the reality of dogs, because I think that they don't like me, or I'm afraid. I get nervous about it. It's sort of irrational, but it's definitely true, or it does happen. So it's like, I wish I could be myself around the people that make me nervous, or I'm too intimidated by. But that's not real, because it's a different game, and you're just not going to be good at some games. I'm not good at the game of Dogtopia, being in there, talking to them. I get nervous at the point I walk in, but that's just because of this reality. And it's like, that's because of the reality that that is, versus the reality of like a pro shop for a golf course. It's like, pro shop of a golf course, and the reality of that is so themed to golf that it's like, off-putting if you're really going to look at it, look at it and think about it or analyze it. It's like, lots of people would just look at all of this and say, like, I don't need to go into that, like, comparison of different realities, how everything is a reality. But I do it because, just because it's what I'm already saying. Just because it's what I'm already saying, already, like, I would be in the business of saying this. And it used to be, before I made a podcast, that I would just be saying this bullshit to people in conversation, and they thought I was a moron. And so then I started recording myself so that I have an outlet for it. So I just say it on here, is like, it because it's entertainment. And if I'm trying to promote entertainment in a world that just wants small talk, or just wants me to be relatable, this isn't very relatable if I'm just giving you a stream of words that's specific to me, that it's like, these are things I want to say, and nobody knows why I want to say them, or why I'm saying them, or they think that I'm supposed to arrive at a point, or like that I'm like, that like, what's your problem that you keep saying things. So like, people will treat it like that in the game of small talk, in the game of just regular, like, this is, we're part of a group, or being sociable. But that's just like the perception of sociable groups at this point, is that it does not involve this line of speech, that like, if I just go into abstract things that are specific to me, that it's just like, obviously this is what you wanted. But people who don't understand the situation think it's like a problem. They're like, what's your problem? You need to keep saying that. Like, what are you trying to arrive at? I think that it's more like, there are people that would just say things, and like this is just a like current stream of whatever. Or you can go into that. And so it's like, maybe people think that you would go into that, or like, it's a choice, like, I'm choosing to go into it. So it's like, you just want attention, or like, what's the problem? What do you need? You need to be satisfied in some way that you would stop saying this. That's just people trying to control you when they don't understand what's going on, like, or they just can't produce that on their own, like, so they don't understand it, so they're afraid, that they try to control you into saying that it's a problem. And in some respects it is a problem if it's like really problematic to people, the things that I would say, or that me as a point of reference would continually keep promoting the idea that there is no answer, like, no, I'm just going to keep saying things, or like, there's no shutting me up, or something like that might actually be a problem to people, to the point that you could be defined as a problem, but it's like being problematic, that we only view this negatively. This is a part of the game of society, the game of sociability as it stands right now. And the game of sociability. But this is but like, because people would see that as like, are you just playing a game? Maybe they might. I don't know. I don't know what they see. But it's like, nowadays, if people know that I'd have a podcast, this gets back to me sometimes, that people say like, oh, are you in podcast mode right now? Like, as I'm talking to them, they're like, oh, this is starting to sound like one of your podcasts. If I start to go into like ways that I talk on my podcast around them, they're like, oh, this sounds like one of your podcasts, because people like the idea that I would get so involved in this that I wouldn't be able to separate it from reality. People like that idea. They try to read it into, it's just that people come up with all kinds of shit to say that I'm being too far out of reality. They don't do it like intentionally. It's just that people are sadistic like that, and they wouldn't recognize they're being sadistic. They just think that they're doing that in the name of helping me out, or like being like they're helping me be relatable or helping me socialize myself better or something, or they're just afraid that I would be talking about things that they're not on board with or don't understand. So they're just like bring the outlier back in with the rest of us. But this is the way that is socially constructed. As long as it's all about sociability, like that's a word that we use because it's very socializing, very socialist. The way that we currently socialize, because that is the game. So like the game is sociability. If you're better at talking to people, you're sociable, meaning that you're better at being like nobody, or better at being like nothing, where you're not standoutish, that you're just saying shit that's specific to you and isn't specific to other people. Like the better that you're able to generalize yourself in a group is like sociability, is the more that you're going to be socialist. This is how that game works. And so it's really unfortunate. It's very sad that the world sees this as talking to people, that being good at talking to people means being like generalizing yourself to the point that you aren't an individual. Like that but that's the way that the game is, because the rules of the game for sociability are written as such, because that's the title of that game. But that's that game versus like it could be under a different title or a different name, where it's like individuals just saying like, if disagreeability was the name that we gave to it, then it would be a completely individualistic environment. Or if like talking to people, if we saw it as that being the most disagreeable was the most valuable, then this would be in terms of talking to people, then that would be the opposite of the way that we currently socialize and talk to people. But it's because sociability, or like that, is what's seen as a positive character or a hero. You're a hero in the social game when you are the most sociable, but it's just like it's like that's where you'd say popularity is superficial, as if you're just trying to play the rules of the game. Or like you just know the rules of the game, because then you aren't necessarily good in other areas. If you're just making your identity entirely sociability, then you're very sociable, and like you're very good at that. But it's like it's not necessarily good for you. But like if you want a more transcendent identity, then you wouldn't make everything about one game or one identity, because there's identities and then there's identity, the idea. Identities are derivatives of identity, the idea. They're just specific individualized realities or games that you can equate yourself with, and then within an identity, an internal hierarchy develops. Like Jordan Peterson also is like, Jordan Peterson is obsessed with the idea of games. He just refers to them as hierarchies. He says there's a hierarchy that takes place. And I was saying before, like, a hierarchy in a church is all about holiness, or maybe I wasn't saying that, I don't know. Hierarchy in a church is all about holiness, and that is the game, basically, so that you don't want to be around unholy people or sinners, because that's going to drag you down in terms of your status in the game that you chose to identify yourself in. So you don't want to be around people that are going to make you worse, because people do influence, because you don't want to be, or you don't want to, so it's not like, so you might decry a sinner in the church, but that's because you're trying to protect yourself, protect your identity. You don't want to be identified as sinners, and you will be if you hang out with them. And so when people that you think are Christians are acting unholy, that makes you uncomfortable. If you really buy into Christianity, you don't want to be around that, because you're doing things in the name of being more holy than other people. It's like, but it's understood that if you're a better Christian, you understand the reality of that sinners are decried, because that's the rules of that game, because the sinners are the evil people according to that game. But like, why did I get off on that? Like, it's off-putting when I try to go back and figure out where it came from, rather than let myself continue on, because I don't remember. Or like, I remember it, it's just like, I get nervous about trying to remember it. And that's like, I get nervous about trying to remember it because you always have to stay on the same train of thought. And at some point in my life, I recognize that like, if you don't go back to what you were saying before, people are just going to think like, because that's not how you converse. That's not the way that sentences are allowed. Like, because the rules of the game, the rules of talking are such that it plays out in these products, these sentences. Like, but we don't see around to that enough. Like, you can just make up your own language. Everybody, like, how monopolized is the English language for, like, America, where people all speak it? Like, I know that, like, you can speak Spanish, but what I'm saying is how communal and how socialist the English language is, that, like, without batting an eye, everybody equates himself to it. Everybody speaks in that. It's like it's a less evolved society That's like everybody speaks the same language. Like, this is eerie. This is like everybody thinking that Dogtopia is the true reality or something, because you're not allowed to make up your own language. This is like thinking of everybody speaking in literally their own language is so far out of the realm of like talking to people, because talking to people we see as played out through sociability and like relatability, that but you're not going to make up your own language. And it's not just like making up your own language, it's just like talking in words that aren't like meeting, not in the right order, like if you spoke out of order. But people aren't able to do that because we only live and we only speak and articulate ourselves through this language, to the point like we're so inundated with it because everybody only speaks this language. Like, but and so what would it take to evolve past that? I don't know. It would just be at the point that you recognize that it wasn't necessary that everybody had to speak in the same language, but like you would think that it was necessary. But it has to do with the identity and building yourself within the hierarchy of the identity, like America, the identity of that, and then like playing the game. Like you have to, like, if you're gonna play the game at all, and it's like I do that, so obviously I'm gonna speak in the English language. And but like I'm not saying I have the ability to speak outside of it, but it's only at the point that you recognize that that's what everybody was doing, is when people would invent new ways to do it, like besides speaking in sentences or speaking out of order. But this is like very traditional, very theater like, that we always have to do it in this way, or like speak in an order, like in terms of the standard written for the English language. This is the standard, this is the code written, is that it always, like, the standard, that everybody's abiding by the standard, everybody's agreeing to this point of like the English language, the order of sentences, the way that we speak it as related to like the ideas as they match with the definitions and shit like that. It's just like there are so many rules, but like but it's just that you practice it so often, the tradition of it, that like the theater of it is lost on you. No, like you wouldn't call it a theater ever. That like the English language, all these rules based, not just the words, but like the cadence, and then like that you distribute emotion over a sentence in a certain way, that it has a certain rise and a fall, that is like it has to peak here, but like it doesn't have to peak there. Then sometimes you create your own cadences, your own ways of distributing feeling across a series of words, and then this makes you innovative. But like you see that people do that, you see that people are starting to talk like using their hands, and then like, but why do you do that? Or like like people start to do that in their language. It's just like, why don't you just use your hands to say like I'm communicating something, or like whatever, like use your hands in really awkward or like esoteric ways, using your hands in different ways that aren't necessarily true, but just like they go along with something that it's like, oh, I guess you can do that. Like you can create new ways of talking, and people do it all the time, and like new generations are all speaking in different languages differently. It's just more like, it's just that we're not outside of language enough that we're going to change an entire dialect, or like the culture is going to change overnight in the way that they speak. But the way that we speak does change over time. And it's like in the early 1900s, they spoke in these very accentuated, decorated accents that just sound like nonsense, where they're up too high, or it's like too English, like that it sounds like a theater, it sounds like William Shakespeare. That's the way they talked, relatively more like that. In the late 1800s, they all spoke like you're supposed to speak in a Shakespearean play, because because back in the day, that's how people actually talked, and that was the way that they actually spoke. But now, but it's like in the 1930s, people have a way of talking, and then it evolves into something else, and then it's like the way that we talk evolves, and this like slowly evolving. But like that you point out the theater of things is what changes it, so that you're like, not, because at the point that you recognize that it's a theater, that it's like this repetitive thing, then you want to do something else, or you see it as less intelligent, because people are doing like, then we want a world that's different. Like not everybody does. Like I'm a person that's talking all the time, and so it would mostly be people that are like aren't in the business of creating anything, that would not understand why I'm saying things at all. It's just because I'm in I want a different world, and I am not satisfied, and I'm not content. I want a different world. I want new ideas or something. I don't want to be whatever. I don't want to be identified to whatever before. But and so then there's some people that wouldn't understand that, because they're just like, why don't you want the safety of doing the things by, like, can't you just abide by the thing rather than thinking of all these things outside of it? Like, and that doesn't, it's just that there are a lot of people like that. A lot of people like that that are just like in the business of creating a new thing, but there's so many that the world is going to evolve to what it wants to do, that they're like, what are we gonna we're gonna do what we want to do. And what I'm saying with that is that we can get to the point where everything is a game, like the way that you would idealize it. Like, not that it would make us happy, it's just that like everything can become a game where it's like everything is just if that entirely comes to you, where you don't have to work anymore, it's like work is subject to us rather than that we're subject to it. But like, um because everybody is receiving that, and it's like the world evolves toward what it already what it already wants. And like the I need to not get so like, oh, I'm saying things that are good already, because you can get and you can play into that. You can say like, this is a good episode so far, I don't want to fuck it up, because there are certain rules that dictate that you cannot be this good at something. You cannot be that good at something, because like this is the person that does that the best. And so you live your life by that standard. Like, you can set a celebrity or somebody that we've set up to the point of being a god. You can set them up so high that you're like, nobody will ever pass that. And so, especially not me or whatever. Like, you can't be so good at something that you're like actually always good at it. But this is what we are processing in society and creating all these fictional worlds, is like the ability to, can you just create anything at all? Like, how much about what would otherwise be fictional can we then potentially create for ourselves and like make it our life? But that's like, if you become like transcendently famous, that is something, that's the way that it actually happened for you. It's like, I'm just saying, if you're able to enact everything that you wanted, like if you become the best golfer in the world, this was your dreams going into it, and then like that actually happens, that's just that would be otherworldly. You would think that, like, you'd probably think that you're just living a dream, you were making it up, or you're insane, like, because I would probably be more likely than that you actually became the greatest golfer in the world. But this is what we process. But like, we might get to the point that we just evaluate all these, like golf tournament or the NFL or politics, becoming the best politician or a great artist or anything, that we process all of these as like, we're outside of them enough. We evaluate so much them enough and critique them so much that we're just like, oh, like we stop reading into it the value that we do, because we see that that's all within ourselves, to be like you can't be the greatest golfer, obviously you can't just go out and do that, but there's something more transcendent about sports than politics, because it's easier to see that you could just talk your way to president, maybe, or like, because something that's less transcendent is something that more so everybody can see that they're able to do. But like, it's the same, like medicine is more transcendent, and that's why we believe in the authority of medicine more so than the authority of like news. But you're able to more quickly see that you can narrate things than that you could like be your own doctor. Like don't get mad at me for saying that people could potentially be their own doctor or whatever. Like, how would you dissolve the authority of medicine when obviously you need a doctor? You can't like operate on yourself. Like, this isn't something that the authority of that could dissolve, you wouldn't think. But it's more like we create technology, we create robots that could do that, or we code ourselves differently to that our bodies correct ourselves for all kinds of problems. Like, you don't know what technologies could arise that we might be able to merge ourselves with, so that like the technology takes care of a disease, because we are actually defining some of our worst diseases that are killing the most people. We're defining them at faster and faster rates, to the point that, or like that we're able to recode DNA and shit like that, and like define the problems of these diseases better, to the point that we could be like, all you have to do is take this pill and then it'll give you more enzymes in your pancreas, and then that was the problem. Like, it was just that your pancreas didn't have the ability to distribute enzymes when you got cancer or something. Like, it's stuff like that where you can eventually medicate yourself, but obviously not right now. And so we need a group of people like doctors that we hold in this high status, and like celebrities in the area of medicine, the area of saving people that we use as a buffer between ourselves and like the transcendent, or in that case, the ability to fix ourselves, because that is like a godlike thing, being able to completely fix yourself. Like that's like that would have been that's witchcraft, the kinds of things that we can do, like pills that we could take to help ourselves out now, as opposed to like 200 years ago. And like um what I'm saying is that the enthusiastic you can only be so good at something, and it's kind of like saying that you're weighed down to the standards of other people, at least so much, so that you wouldn't, like, because I can't create my own language, but part of that is because the world doesn't recognize the value in that, even if I did. And but you just gotta but what am I saying? What am I saying? So it's like somebody would say to me that you're in podcast mode, or like this sounds like one of your podcasts, because they like the idea that because people are more sadistic or whatever. Um because they're trying to control, but I think it's a feminine masculine thing, where it's like femininity doesn't like somebody who's just going to say that they have all these things to say, like braggadociousness. Not all femininity, like not all women, but like braggadociousness, saying that you have things to say. There are a lot of people that would answer that by just saying like, well, do you realize that nothing matters on the earth? Like, why would you care about any of that? What do you have to say? What are you trying to change that you think that you have the ability to change? It all just comes from you. You recognize that none of that matters, and that it comes from you. You live a very insignificant life. You're an insignificant person. That you like. Why do you think that you're so valuable, or whatever? There's like braggadociousness. I would say that is more like, and that is braggadocious, just to say that you have things to say, like that. But that you're saying it at all. And so there's a lot of people that don't understand that, or like it's more feminine, and the more so that femininity is like the ocean, masculinity is like the land, or just femininity is like water. It's like rivers that they wear away the land constantly over and over again but they disintegrate land into nothing if they're given the freedom to do that. Like this is like femininity is sort of like that. But besides how much femininity you would already understand is related to the ocean, but or like the tides. But land is where realities can play out. Land is where you create games, where you say a bunch of nonsense to say that there's like value, or identify yourself. Like land is where you can create realities. The world is like a giant rock, and this is a place where realities can be created, as opposed to outer space. Outer space, within just space itself, you can't. There's nothing sturdy about it. There's no gravity holding anything together that you would be able to create a stabilized reality of any sort. And so it's like people that live on land that are able to create, but like constantly flowing, no stability. This works in opposition to land or integrated objects. And it's like it's integrated objects. It's an integrated a reality that you create would be an integrated thing, because it's like factors in a product that you create a product. Like an integral is like a product, because it's like it's an integrated thing. It's a composite of a number of factors. Something that you create is that's a reality, has to be integrated, has to be sturdy or solid. It has to be like this defined thing with boundaries, like the land is, and the ocean is water. Ocean is not, I mean, it has defined boundaries because of the coexistence of land and water, like, but that's really the only thing that does, because the ocean is just whatever is. But even like the ocean versus the continents, the ocean is wearing away the continents to some degree, to the point that it broke all of them up when we used to be Pangea, all connected as one giant landmass. It's been broken up over time, because oceans are kind of like rivers in that way. You could say that the Atlantic Ocean is like a giant river between the western and eastern hemispheres, but that is like that wore away that what land could have been there, so that it's actually just water with it's not a stabilized environment. But it's like in the world that you can create these realities. It's but like America is maybe more masculine, and then their environment, the reality of America is more so capitalistic, so that everybody's creating these sub realities, all these environments, all these money spots all over, that you create your own. And like there's money spots. Like Dogtopia is this money spot, or a certain reality plays out in there. And I get nervous about the dog world, and so I get nervous going into there. And and um, yesterday I went in there, and what happened was, what happened was, I got nervous walking in, and then sometimes I'm not actually nervous when I walk in there. It's just like being congenial. Like it doesn't always work that way if the rules of the game are set against you. If like the reality you're in is one that you're naturally not compatible with, you will not be able to act like yourself around that. And it's the same with people that you want to impress, like people that are maybe more undefinable to you, people that you look up to, people that you wish saw you the way that you are. Is it like they sometimes it's just you might be attracted to a game that's presented by somebody else as somebody else. When you enter different environments, they change the game, or like the rules of the game are changed, and that's why people are more interesting than like a TV show, really. Is because you don't know, like a different group of people, a different arrangement is a different game, and the rules are different because people naturally present different rules because you have to talk to them differently because they are different. But like the differences in people is what makes them different, what makes people interesting. If you're going to recognize that people are interesting, you're recognizing their differences. But you can also recognize that people are not interesting, that nothing matters. Why would you go into evaluating different realities against each other? Why would you go into evaluating differences, one person to the next, one reality to the next, when you don't have to? But like if you're in the business of recognizing interesting things or appreciative things, or just like this is what could possibly, these are like instances in which I can trap current. I would say you could trap current, like the way that money is current. Like you can trap, like you might be in the business of creating a reality with borders, and then maybe that's more masculine, like, or maybe it's more feminine. It's really a matter of your perspective. You could just say that talking a lot is a feminine thing if those are your experiences. Like women are usually doing that. But like um because there's telling a story, and then this is what small talk is about, because people are like actually serious about small talk. Because I would have thought that we maligned small talk so much as a world that it doesn't, like people see that it's stupid. But there are it now at this point, it's just that the word small talk is in everybody's vocabulary. It's just that the people that really liked small talk now at this point have to admit it, to the point that they're like, hey, you have to converse, you have to do small talk. Like I can't talk the way that I'm talking in a regular conversation, because they're like, hey, you have to sit down and listen to me. You have to do small talk. Hey, that's called small talk when you're just relating yourself. You have to do that because now we have outed the people that like small talk, and it's really the case that there's like this community of people like that actually really like small talk, and they're behind it because like, hey, you have to like listen to everybody, or it's just like more communal, like this environment of respecting everybody or not recognizing differences, because these are just people that don't like recognizing differences. They like that everybody would be the same, or they value commonality more, are people that are defenders of small talk. But it's like there are actually people that like small talk. Like this is something that people like to do, to the point that they think that everybody has to sit down and listen to that. But it's like you differentiating yourself from a small talk environment is what makes you a different problematic person. Anyway, if you're going to go so far as to just be an asshole, then you are being an asshole, because that's like as defined. If you're going to go into assholery by not relating yourself or whatever, like then you are becoming a problem. Then you're not doing the small talk. But this is like, then I mean, it's kind of like the rules of the game are such that the small talk people have liberty to legally bind you to asshole if you like to asshole, legally bind you to asshole. Ha, that sounds funny, obviously, but you, like, I'm trying to make a better point than that. You would have the visual of somebody being binded to someone's ass, and they legally can't have the grounds to call you an asshole because you are being that, because that's the rules of the game. Like if you see outside of small talk, legally have the grounds to call small talk people small-minded, or just that, or more naive or something. But they also in turn get to call you names, because there are dividing lines between games that you are either a part of or not a part of, and then legally you have different words associated within the boundaries of the environments that like, and you get to throw those back and forth based on the reality that you want to participate in. Gangs don't like each other. The Crips don't like the Bloods. They're in different worlds because they're in opposition to each other. But it's like kind of like Pepsi and Coke, where they both, like the Crips and the Bloods both produce the same thing or the same service, because they're both gangs, but they're in opposition to each other. But there's different kinds of opposition, or whatever. Some like, but there's different games, and um like, so I went into Dogtopia, and um I was collecting my dog, and then the person who I'm guessing it was like the person that owned Dogtopia came up, was there because he was really friendly, and he was like, he's just like knowledgeable in that way. He's putting forth that he like owns the place because he's like helping me out or whatever. And then he came to me with information about my dog. Like, this is what your dog did. He ate every meal or whatever. And then he did well with the other dogs. He told me a report of how Ziggy did there. And then when I went to leave, he kissed my dog and said, "Love you, bye Ziggy." And like people there that were working there, they're like, "Bye Ziggy," and like they're like so happy, sad to see him leave, like he's a member of their family or something. And this guy who I'd imagine is like the owner. I think I met him before. He's like the owner, but he kissed my dog and said, "Love you," to my dog. And I was thinking about that today, and I was like, what is that exactly? Like, I don't trust it, obviously. It's like, oh, I don't trust it. It's not that I don't trust it. Like, that's somebody trying to keep a business together, you know. He's trying to keep a business together. That's why he does things like that. It's not like he loves my dog because he just met my dog, but also he doesn't love my dog because there's like 50 other dogs at this place. He's gonna like love all of these dogs. I mean, like genuinely, he's probably more loving of dogs person. So like relatively more than other people, he's able to show love to a dog, and or just a random dog that isn't like not special to him in any way. But what I'm saying is that it is kind of an act because if we weren't in Dogtopia, this would not be happening and you would not be doing that because this is you're trying to keep a business together, and you're trying to keep a business together, so you're like by the rules of the reality, or like you're saying that like, and so it's like maybe I shouldn't be so cynical as to see things as an act like that. There are like people that are genuinely like, it's not like it's an act. He genuinely loves the dog or something, but it's like you're going through a set of like things that you should say in order to like, I see that you're a loving, good group of people. I'm going to bring my dog back here because you're trying to keep a business up. You're trying to maintain the reality, keep that successful as long as possible. And like the point the point that I wanted to make was that he's saying that it's just like, well, that is an act because this isn't, if this place wasn't called Dogtopia, then you wouldn't be doing that. But like that I have to, because the reality is such that I have to respect all the realities, right? I have to respect reality as it is. I have to respect reality, or like respect the reality of that, and say that it's not an act when it is, when it's like that wouldn't be playing out that way. Because I don't have to respect realities, especially when Chuck E. Cheese is in reality. Like that somebody would come to me and say, like, you have to be in reality, or like you have to play by the rules of the game at all times. And it's like, or like, don't recognize that there are differences in reality. Like, don't go into that. Don't overanalyze. Just like go along with what's already happening. You make your life more safe or whatever. Like when the people that say that everything is just reality, or just one of them, the reality that we're in respects Chuck E. Cheese. Like Chuck E. Cheese is in reality. When there's nothing real about that, like that I would have to respect that reality, like this different world that's created, because it's a different world that's happening. It's a different world that you're asking me to respect reality when people have like our entire country has agreed that Chuck E. Cheese is fine, that this universe is okay. Like, why do I have to say that a universe is true, and then like the rules that play out in it are true when that universe is a subset within larger universes? Like when I can see outside of it, when I can go in and out of it, like I can call that an act um because he's doing it within that world. He's doing it within that. He's not doing it outside of it. Um, but I'm saying like that Chuck E. Cheese is a restaurant is a slap in the face. It's called a restaurant. That's what's shocking. Chuck E. Cheese is a restaurant. Does anybody know that? Does anybody realize this? That like this is like that people are going around saying that reality. Just saying reality, but Chuck E. Cheese is a restaurant, but we still go to restaurants. Like Chucky, and what I'm saying is, Chuck E. Cheese being a restaurant is a slap in the face to restaurants. Like that's such a critique of it that that's such a critique of it that's so critical. It's like totally makes fun of restaurants that it's called that. Like, well, that's a restaurant too. But you can see that that's the way that it works in some restaurants is that kind of all restaurants are like Chuck E. Cheese, where it's like the rules are kind of silly, or that you're asking these waiters and waitresses that are dressed up with the restaurant to like get you more food, like you're a child and their parents, like, and that everything is themed like, oh, you're gonna do this, that like because the world is different within a restaurant. So it's like, that's a big slap in the face to restaurants. It's a big slap in the face to reality, like that we allow shit like that when the false or like the corniness of it, how backwards it is to think like because you can be in a Chuck E. Cheese and like this is a world the same way that the world is like because as long as worlds are things, as long as you'd say that something is a world, if you agree with me to the point that you could call Chuck E. Cheese its own world, this is its own because it has its own rules that you can do these things at Chuck E. Cheese, but it's like a fuck you to reality because it's a fuck you to games that you can create these worlds where these games happen. Like it's like a microcosm of life, almost like the rat race. You see that this plays out just somebody wrote the rules of like this is how a Chuck E. Cheese works. That and it's kind of dark and backwards that kids are living out this game centric in world and environment when they don't have to. And you wouldn't necessarily see it as dark, but obviously there's something dark about Chuck E. Cheese. And that this is a world too that's a slap in the face to realities that and also that we allow it says something about us that we like engage with this reality. We're like, oh yeah, that's true, we're gonna bring our kids there, they're gonna have fun in this place, this weird ass place where like there are celebrities and the celebrities are animatronic giant mice. And but so obviously Chuck E. Cheese is dark, but it's like it's a slap in the face of reality. But it's like to us, like that we allow this reality, like this is a perspective that we have in reality that we allow, like this is a part of our reality, like that I have to respect reality as according to other people when the entire country has agreed the reality. Like you see some of the realities that people say are okay, and so then I am supposed to respect all of reality when there are so many backwards ones that are like or like even anybody's YouTube channel that I wouldn't agree with. Like I'm supposed to respect, like don't make it reality. Don't say that I have to respect that or that reality is staying in it or that reality like what would I be staying in? And like what could I possibly be staying in when it's nothing but coexisting many different realities? And like like McDonald's is a theater where they put on that show. McDonald's is a theater. Like a pro shop is like a caricature. It's like parody. If you're taking the time to really analyze it like that, like a pro shop is like parody that, like oh I can't believe that everything in here is something that you would do as a golfer. Like everything is golf themed. Like of course they have golf balls in here. Of course they have gloves that you can buy, and it's all golf clothing. It's like it's almost like parody or like theater, or it's like a caricature, a pro shop at a golf course, that they sell only golf themed things and it's all on theme. And it's like that's what a Broadway show is like it's all on theme to the show. If like Hamilton is everybody that is participating in that is doing lots of Hamilton the play kinds of things, and it's like very it's thematic to the time period, the shit that they're wearing, and it's like a play the same way that if you work at Google, there's like like Google might not have a dress code or whatever because they're more evolved or something. They're like you don't have to have a dress code. They're like their dress code is anti-dress code, that there isn't one. But if you go to a place where you need to wear nicer clothes, this is a similar thing where you're wearing you have to wear clothing thematic to either a time period. Like in this time period we wear suits still, and it looks stupid when it looks stupid in the NBA finals when you see all of ESPN's broadcasters wearing these suits because it looks antiquated. It looks from a different time. You really don't have to wear suits anymore because we understand that you can wear whatever clothes. Everybody's just wearing like athletic wear to shit, even to games. Like, it doesn't even mean anything to dress special in public anymore. And so it actually looks kind of antiquated to me when I see ESPN's broadcasters are all wearing suits. Like, you guys, we should be past that, right? Because they're wearing clothes, like, you're wearing clothes thematic to a time period where people thought it was important to wear suits, for one. If you work at a place that you need to wear suits or just nicer clothing, and also like thematic to the business, thematic to like what the business calls for. And so you're playing to the rules of the reality of the business when you wear the clothes that they need you to. But it's like the reality of the entire world. This is more open-minded. You can wear more clothes just out in public anywhere because we allow for that. You can wear that. It's not like colonial times where, or I mean, just people's perception of the way that fashion is supposed to be. It's gonna change or allow for either a more open or closed mindset about what people can wear just on their own and their own choices that they can make. But like McDonald's like a theater where you can get yourself involved in it if you eat at fast food too many times. Like you develop a character for answering to people at a drive-through window. If you do it a lot, you get more involved in the theater of it, like to the point that I think that you would develop a character for a drive-through window if you do it a lot. But if you don't, if you eat fast food not very much at all, you would not think about the thing that you have to say to the fast food person. You're just gonna drive off. It's not something you're thinking about because you don't do it as much. And so it's not like this repetitive thing where you know what to expect. You're like when you face the person at the window. But like the people in the restaurant, they're living out this theater, and like the inside of McDonald's looks a specific way such that you could like in 100 years when McDonald's didn't exist, set it as the setting for a theater. But like the drive-through process is part of the theater where it's like you go and do that same thing every time, where it's like this repetitive thing that's worthy of ridicule to some extent. But like I'm saying that you would develop a character like you're like, this is what I do at drive-through windows. Because just out of laziness, people do things out of laziness when they can't account for every single area in their life. Like if it's something like that, if it's something that you do all the time, maybe it's like you start to develop a character for that so that you don't have to deal with coming up with something new in every conversation in that environment, so you don't have to like have a new interaction because you know what to expect, and you can't get around that you see that you know what to expect. And so like, but I'm just saying like this is like slowly being under the spell of a theater, like, and it's a gradual thing, and it happens slowly that you might develop a character because at the point that you're doing it too many times, you cannot help but recognize things about it that you wouldn't have recognized if you only did it a couple times. And so you might develop a character to take the hit for yourself as an excuse. So they're like, this is what I say in this situation every time, just because you can't come up with something new for every single situation. And so like, just out of convenience, you might just, but I guess you could develop characters for yourself that you could use as a buffer between you and I don't know. I'm getting out of that might be too far out of context, whatever I was starting to say, but that's all that is. My apartment smells like shit because my dog had diarrhea. So you're welcome. You're welcome for ending on that note, and talk to you all soon. Bye. Bye now.